Let's talk about a famous person who lived 2000 years ago. Even before he was born, it was known that he would be special. A supernatural being told his mother that the child she was carrying would not be a mere mortal, but a divine person. The birth itself was a miracle, and even in his youth the child developed beyond his years. As an adult he left home and became an itinerant preacher, urging people to live by spiritual rather than material values. He attracted disciples who were convinced of the divinity of his teachings, partly because they believed him to be divine. He proved this with numerous miracles, healing the sick, casting out demons and raising the dead. Towards the end of his life, however, he ran into trouble. His enemies handed him over to the Romans for trial. When he left this world, he returned to his disciples and convinced them that he was not dead, but alive in the heavenly realms. Later some of his disciples wrote books about him. This text does not refer to Jesus Christ. This passage is taken from Bart Ehrman's book Was There a Jesus?, where the famous biblical scholar says that besides Jesus, there were other miracle workers who could do the impossible and who were close to the image of Jesus. Jesus Christ had many contemporaries who became famous for performing miracles and helping people. The most famous was Apollonius of Tyana. Christians called Apollonius of Tyana a charlatan and Jesus Christ the Son of God. The followers of Apollonius took the opposite view. Apollonius was born in the Cappadocian city of Tyana, modern Turkey, at about the same time as Jesus. He died at the end of the 1st century. He was a follower of the Pythagorean philosophy. We know about him thanks to another Neo-Pythagorean who lived in the 3rd century, Philostratus the Elder. Philostratus wrote a biography of Apollonius at the request of the Roman Empress Julia Domna, in order to vindicate the miracle worker, since Apollonius was considered to be a sorcerer and an impostor at the time. In Philostratus' book, Apollonius performs many miracles similar to those of Jesus. When Apollonius was speaking to his disciples, a certain youth, who had such a bad reputation for licentiousness that his behavior had long been the subject of rude street songs, laughed so loudly that he drowned out Apollonius' speech. Then Apollonius looked at him and said, "It is not you who insults me, but the demon who acts through you without your knowledge." The young man was indeed possessed by a demon, without knowing it, for he laughed at things that no one else laughed at, and then he began to cry for no reason. When Apollonius looked at him, the demon inside him began to utter cries of fear and rage. The demon swore that he would leave the young man alone and never possess another human being again. But Apollonius ordered him to leave the young man alone and to give a visible sign that he had done so. "I will throw this statue over there," said the devil. When the statue began to move smoothly and then fell, everyone was surprised. The young man wiped his eyes as if he had just woken up, looked at the rays of the sun, took on a humble appearance and was no longer mad. He decided to become an ascetic, put on a shirt and continued to build his life on the model of Apollonius. There is a similar text in the Gospel of Mark, when Jesus expelled demons from the young man and put them into pigs, chapter 5. In Matthew 8 Jesus also casts out demons. This is not the only manifestation of Apollonius' miracles. In other stories of Philostratus, the philosopher heals a dislocated spine by massaging it, restores sight to a blind man, and makes a paralyzed arm move. Another miracle was the resurrection of a woman who had died at her wedding. She was already being carried on a stretcher when Apollonius appeared. He told them to lower the bier. He approached the body of the girl, touched it, said some words, and it came to life. The girl spoke out loud and returned home. The girl's relatives wanted to give Apollonius 150,000 sesterces, but he said he would give the money to the girl as a dowry. As well as preaching asceticism and Pythagorean philosophy, Apollonius traveled widely, visiting Greece, Ethiopia, India, Syria, Spain, North Africa and Mesopotamia. Philostratus writes that when Apollonius was in Italy, he decided to visit Rome, even though it was forbidden. The philosopher broke the ban and was summoned to court during the reign of Emperor Domitian, where Apollonius criticized the ruler of Rome and was acquitted. Apollonius died either in Crete, Ephesus, or Lynda. In Crete he entered the temple of Apollo and disappeared, ascending to the gods. For a time he returned to those who prayed to him to preach to them about the immortality of the soul. People were fascinated by Apollonius' miracles. Many saw obvious parallels with the life of Jesus Christ. He had a serious influence on the important people of the time. When the Emperor Aurelian, 3rd century, went to massacre the kingdom of Palmyra, Apollonius appeared to him and told him to take pity on the civilians. People made and wore amulets in honor of Apollonius to protect themselves. The Latin bishop Sidonius Apollinarius, 5th century, also admired the philosopher, although the cult of Apollonius was clearly at odds with Christianity. The Neoplatonist Porphyry, 3rd century, in his great work against the Christians, wrote that Apollonius, like Jesus, had achieved similar things. The Roman authorities used the figure of Apollonius to fight the Christians. In response, Christians such as Eusebius of Caesarea, Apollinarius of Laodicea and Lactantius claimed that Apollonius was a sorcerer and a devil worshipper. It cannot be said that the biographies of Jesus and Apollonius agree completely. There are many differences between their legendary biographies. Nor can it be said that one was copied from the other. What is important is that for the people of antiquity, the image of Jesus was not a single image. They believed in many miracle workers who were no inferior to Jesus Christ.